Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail C. Martin, and tonight we're talking about appropriately named cities that either showed up in the series or didn't but should have. Places the Winchesters did or should have gone that were just perfectly named. But before we get into that, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Lola.
My name's Lola Lariscy. I'm a writer. I've been watching Supernatural since the beginning.
Okay, Anne.
Hi, I'm Ann Wicker, and I came late to the Supernatural family, but I went down the rabbit hole completely, and I'm an unabashed Dean girl, and I'm also a writer and editor.
Very good. Elektra.
Gosh, I think we're just going to be saying all the same stuff. I'm Elektra Hammond. I'm a writer, I'm an editor, and I've been with Supernatural since that very first episode.
And I'm going to match up with Anne and say I came late to the Supernatural family, came in halfway through season 11, binge watched 11 seasons in 4 months so I could get caught up by season 12. Haven't looked back since. As Gail C. Martin, I write epic fantasy, urban fantasy, steampunk, and more. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance, but all my modern worlds are ones where Sam and Dean could walk in and feel right at home. So the series took us to a lot of places, crisscrossing the continent more times than you'd think you could in a car that old that had, that needed very expensive gas. But putting aside how they got very quickly from like Kansas to Massachusetts between episodes, they went to a lot of places, or should have gone to a lot of places, that were just perfectly named for what they did. So let's just do several rounds and name a couple of your favorites each time. We'll come back around. Lola?
I'm going to let you know I misunderstood the assignment. So I'm going to be flying on the seat of my pants for the few ones because I looked up ones where they should have gone.
And that's perfectly fine. We're going to do both. Just whatever you thought was cool.
All right. Well, I just looking quickly at fandom, I don't remember this, but apparently they're in a place called Kripke's Hollow.
It's a fictitious place, but yes, Kripke's Hollow, Ohio shows up several times.
And what a coincidence that it shares the name of the creator, Eric Kripke. That's, you know.
It's like the same coincidence that Sam Winchester's birthday is the same as Kripke's son. I mean, who'd have thought?
I know, it's just all these happy coincidences just happen to happen with no direction or anything from the writers.
Okay, Anne.
Well, I'm going to go with a place that they should have gone. There's a town in Maine called Purgatory, and there's also a town in Michigan called Hell. So
enough time there and decided not to go back.
True. And then I found, while on my way to looking something else up, completely unrelated to Supernatural, I found that there is a Fergus Falls, Minnesota. So Fergus Crowley. So I thought that was pretty funny. And Electoral had to help me on this, but I found 14 cities in the United States named Winchester, and they never went to any of them. Which also brings up, why did they never go to the Winchester house?
They mentioned it once, I think, but they never went.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mystery house, that would have been awesome. They might have gone lost and never gotten out. Maybe that was their worry.
Or
like,
maybe if it was unhaunted, people wouldn't come. So maybe the administrators told them not to go in.
That's true. They didn't want to get rid of the ghosts. So they were like, no hunters allowed.
Yeah.
But still, don't they kind of own it? No.
Elektra, how about you?
I probably should start by mentioning the reason that I asked about this panel was because I met somebody from Uranus, Missouri, who was terribly proud of being from there, home of the Uranus Fudge Factory and the Moonicorn Creamery and Funnel Cakery.
Wait, the Uranus Creamery?
Mm-hmm.
No, the Moonicorn Creamery and the Uranus Fudge Factory. Apparently,
I'm sorry, I just can't.
big tourist stop, but it's also home to Wilson's Creek Battlefield, which is thought to be haunted. And there's a whole bunch of tourist stuff there.
Well, the boys did go to Erie, Pennsylvania, but they did not go to Erie, Indiana. So in search of all things that are spooky and eerie, they missed one of them. And I have this headcanon, since they spent so long in the car, and, when you're on a long car ride, especially, in the dark, there's just something very special about being in a long car ride in the dark. And I can just see them making fun of all these different signs. And of course, in Pennsylvania, there is a town called Intercourse. There is another town called Blue Balls. And there is a school district set in Derry area, which, if you say it quickly, sounds like derriere. And I can just see Sam and Dean going back and forth with Dean, waggling his eyebrows about, want to stop at Intercourse? Where exit's right there. No, Dean, I think we'll just hang on. Well, yeah, Blue Balls is coming up. And I can just see them going back and forth, with that sort of banter. And then, just because it would annoy Sam, I can see Dean heading for Toadsuck and Booger Hole, just to be able to say them and go, hey, Sam, we're in Booger Hole, want to stop for lunch? I mean, I just see this as
the Booger King.
How they amused themselves on these long, long road trips.
Well, they missed a trick. They could have had the Scribe of God hiding there.
Yeah.
Because it's Booger.
Booger role he played in
from Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been a nice in joke. Okay.
Yeah.
For
all right.
all of us.
Back to you, Lola.
All right, so I'm just going to go the direction that I thought we were going. I interpreted it as places, real places that are just haunted, not necessarily about the name, just haunted.
Mhm.
So the first place I thought of was Bobby Mackey's. Have y'all ever heard of that? Okay, I watch a lot of ghost shows, and this is a place that people go to a lot. It's actually in Kentucky, and Bobby Mackey's a musician, and he opened it like in the 70s, and he insisted it's not haunted. He doesn't want to have anything to do with that haunting talk. But apparently there's a like portal to hell in the basement that someone opened. There's like an altar thing, and somebody opened a portal to hell. And there's like a deep, dark, evil spirit there. And people have gone home changed permanently, like not okay with themselves or the world after they've been there. And it's also haunted by the former caretaker, and they left his apartment the way it was. So there's cigarettes on the table and stuff, and you can go up and you talk to him and say, hey, here's a cigarette. So I think they kind of missed an opportunity there, because it's Midwest. They like the Midwest, and it's famously haunted and like creepily, evilly haunted, not just nice grandma haunted, but like creepy haunted. So that's my idea.
Okay, Anne?
Well, I'll continue in the same vein as Lola, because I looked up several places too that I thought they should have gone besides the Winchester house. And one is the Coral Castle in Florida.
Oh.
And it was built, I had to look it up. We never actually went there. It's near Homestead, Florida. And it's a 1,000 tons of it's not really coral, it's limestone. And the guy was supposedly built it all by himself over a period of I can't remember how many years, because his 16-year-old girlfriend left him at the altar. And so he built this castle, and the pictures are just amazing. And he built it, and then the development in Florida was getting too close. So he took it all down and moved it. And there are all these stories about how he levitated all the rocks and, all this kind of stuff. But in reality, he used pulleys and leverage. But it opened to the public. You can go and tour it. It opened to the public in 1923. He died, I can't remember when I didn't write down when he died, but he worked on it for 28 years. And like I said, there were all these tales about, kind of like Stonehenge. How did this one guy all by himself move all this rock? And apparently he was only 5 feet tall. So that was a pretty, I thought that would have been a pretty interesting place to set a ghost story, more of a ghost story than just this guy did all this levitation stuff. And, maybe he's still there after he died and stuff like that. But I just always wanted to go there, and it's still there. You can tour it. You can even have a wedding there. So hopefully you won't get left at the altar.
Hopefully not. Yes. Elektra, how about you?
Okay, Chocoloco, Alabama, home of the famous Chocoloco monster. Maybe. There was local folklore claiming there was a mysterious creature in the area in the 1960s. And the Daily Show aired a piece on it in 2001. And then later in 2001, a local paper revealed that the monster was in fact a local resident dressed in a cow skull and a sheet.
Bummer.
It was so Scooby-Doo. But how do we know that? I mean, was that guy dressing as the monster for 40 years?
He was cosplaying. I think he was just cosplaying the monster.
For 40 years?
No, I think there was a monster, and
Maybe
now
maybe it was a family thing, or maybe the place is really haunted.
I like that.
Well, they never know.
Well, we've mentioned Hell and Purgatory, but there's Kill Devil Hills in North Carolina, which would have been an appropriate place to meet up with Lucifer. There's the Devil's Tower out west, famous from, Close Encounters, if you want to play with your mashed potatoes. And there's a ghost town in Arizona called Canyon Diablo. Now, this was a railroad town. It's not very far from the meteor crater that's in Arizona. And Canyon Diablo was such a wild town in its short lifespan, because like many railroad towns, it was built to house the workers, and then that section of the railroad got finished and the workers moved on and there was no town left. But Canyon Diablo was such a rough town that they said Wyatt Earp wouldn't even go there. It, had a murder rate, just, I guess if you didn't move on with the railroad, you stayed in Boot Hill. But it was off the charts even for its day, with all kinds of murder and debauchery. And so it's a ghost town now, but that just seems like the sort of place that really needs a Winchester. Back to you, Lola.
Okay, so I mentioned I like ghost shows. So a place ghost shows like to go is Waverly Sanatorium. Have y'all ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's in Kentucky, and it's supposed to be very haunted. Apparently, like thousands and thousands and thousands of people died. It was originally a sanatorium for tuberculosis, and like on the face of it, it was really pretty. It was, it had all these windows that were open to the air, and you could just sit and drink tea, and people would come from all over the United States to go there. In the meantime, there were so many people dying that instead of carrying them out the front door, they built a chute that goes down to the basement, and they would just scoop the bodies in. And so that apparently is very haunted, that chute. And then after that, it turned into Woodhaven Geriatric Center, which was a very horribly run nursing home. The horror stories you hear about, people just left all day in their chair, that kind of thing. Of course, people died from that. I think for a little while it was a prison, or it was going to be a prison. Yeah. So anyways, it is famously haunted to the point where it's booked up for, like a year in advance. There are tours and stuff. You can go on tours, but if you want like privately book it, you have to get on a list and wait. So it's very famously haunted and creepily haunted.
Cool. Anne?
Well, I just want to say that Kill Devil Hill is also, right there is the graveyard of the Atlantic with all the haunted boats and and all that kind of stuff. And if you just go down the coast just a little bit to Charleston, which is a haunted city in and of itself, and you know more about this than I do, Gail. The Hunley. I mean, that's got to have something clinging to that. And
The
so
Hunley
anyway,
down in a museum in South Carolina, isn't it?
yeah, it's in a museum in Charleston after they found it. Yeah. But anyway, and so, but there's another place down east in North Carolina called the Devil's Tramping Ground. And it's a big circle where nothing will grow, and it's, the legend is that the devil just walks around and around and kills everything within that circle. And that was one of my very favorite and very first ghost stories when I was a kid. But it's probably surrounded by suburbs now, and I wouldn't be surprised if some developer wouldn't call Sam and Dean and to come in and make the Devil's Tramping Ground circle go away.
Elektra.
Well, there's a whole bunch of haunted attractions that may or may not actually be haunted all through the country. There's one right up the block from me that's quite nice. But I want to call your attention to Dumfries, Virginia, where there is the Death Trail. The Death Trail is a balance between a haunted trail and a house of death, according to their website. But it also brings the message of the salvation of Jesus, with proceeds going to the ministry. And it is sponsored by everyone from Papa John's Pizza to Patriot Potties. Yeah, I am not making this up. It has the most amazing website, thedeathtrail.com.
Well,
It's got to be really haunted, because this can't be for real. It can't be.
I could see Sam and Dean, stumbling in for a Halloween episode, stumbling into one of those haunted attractions and decking a few people before they realize it's just a bunch of college kids in masks. But yeah, I can imagine that. Well,
that one struck my fancy, so I thought I'd share.
I like that.
That's a good one.
Back in the category of things Dean would point out to annoy Sam, there is Three-Way Tennessee, so after Pamela offered one, hey, Sam, want to get Pamela and go to Three-Way Tennessee? There's also
Buttsville, New Jersey.
Pardon?
Buttsville, New Jersey.
Buttsville, New Jersey. There's Climax, Michigan. And there's Hooker, Oklahoma. Named for a guy, so they say, whose last name was Hooker, and probably the Confederate general. But hey, Sam, we can have a good time in Hooker, Oklahoma. And then, just getting Sam's usual bitch face on the really, Dean.
They have to pay. They'd have to pay, though. Dean usually doesn't
True.
pay.
And then there's Pie Town, Arizona, which I would have thought Dean would have just, gone looking for on general principles.
What if they
Back
don't
to
have
you, Lola.
pie? Huh?
Back to you.
Okay. So Gettysburg, the most haunted place in the country, where supposedly you can just see ghosts just hanging out on the side of the road. What if they were tasked with finding one specific ghost in Gettysburg, where there are thousands of ghosts, and the only lead they have is, it's a man in 1800 period military clothing.
So kind of,
And this
Dead
is the battlefield, not the town.
Yeah, the battlefield. I'm sorry, I should have specified that. Yeah, the Gettysburg battlefield.
so finding dead Private Ryan.
Right, exactly. And there's one out of thousands. Talk about needle in a Getty stack.
Yeah, that would have been great.
There's a battlefield tour you can take.
Okay. I've heard people say they see ghosts.
Anne?
Well, going along with the ghost idea, and this is a particular North Carolina story that I personally know. It's another one of those that I heard as a child. but there's also been songs written about it, and it's not the Brown Mountain Lights, although those are kind of related. It's the Mako Light, and the story is that the train was going, and the caboose somehow got detached, and old Joe Baldwin was on the back of the caboose waving his lantern to warn the oncoming train that there was a car in the way. And of course they didn't see him. The trains collided and he lost his head. And the story is that the light that you see is him looking along the tracks for his head.
Oh.
And there's a song about it called the Mako Light. And but that's not an unusual, kind of like the Woman in White story and the Hook Man story. There are stories like that in many areas of the country. And so I just thought that somewhere along the line, Sam and Dean should have been called in again, probably by a developer who wanted to get rid of this ghost. But you know, but that also goes along, like I said, with the Brown Mountain Lights are different in that they are, you know, we've heard many different stories about what caused the Brown Mountain Lights. But will-o'-the-wisps are mostly blamed for that. And that can be a natural phenomenon. So anyway.
Okay, Elektra.
Okay, well, now I'm going to invite you back to Delaware. When you're up in Pipe Creek visiting the devil, please stop by Brandywine Springs Park and go visit Brandywine Springs Amusement Park. It's an amusement park around the turn of the century. It's been excavated by volunteer amateur archaeologists, and they have found what used to be an old amusement park that's been buried by time in the last 100 years or so. And you can walk around and see where things used to be in and amongst the forest. And they've left markers to show you where things are. And there's a pathway through. It's a fabulous place to walk around, and it must be haunted. It's in the woods. It's the remains of an amusement park. There are pictures of what it used to look like, and it's just the foundations of the rides and
Wow.
the shores of what used to be a lake where you could go boating. And there's not a lot left.
Even if it's, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go
Well, I
ahead.
was just going to interject. Even if it's not haunted, there's a phenomenon called a time slip, where people swear they're walking around and then all of a sudden they're in the 1960s. And maybe they're only there for a few minutes and they come back. So maybe people go into this forest and then just for a few minutes, they're actually in the amusement park the way it was. They could smell the smells and have the cotton candy and everything. And then they come out and they're back in the modern world.
Well, this thing dates back to the 1900s.
Wow.
Turn of the century.
Wow.
You know, it was an old wooden roller coaster, and that's why it's Flinders pretty much, because it's 120 years old. But I've walked around there, and it is a fabulous thing to walk around. I just wouldn't want to do it at night.
No, not at all.
I highly recommend that the boys come down and check it out, because I'm pretty sure it's haunted, and it's a short drive from Nick's house.
There you go.
It's 15 minutes.
In places that are really haunted, and Anne, I'm going to pick up on Charleston for you, and that is the old jail. Now, the old jail was a jail that was, of course, filled to over capacity. It also held prisoners of war after the Civil War. And of course, conditions were always terrible. But its most famous inmate was Lavinia Fisher and her husband. And Lavinia Fisher ran a tavern and an inn outside of Charleston back in the 1700s. And she and her husband would size up travelers who came to stay the night. And if they had stuff that was worth stealing, she would poison them. She actually had trapdoors in the floor under the beds, and that would drop the bodies down into a pit of lime to help get rid of the evidence. And this is not just a legend. She was a real person, and they really did this. And she eventually got caught from the one who got away. And she tried getting out of being hanged by claiming she was pregnant. And that only worked for so long. And then they found out she really wasn't. So she went to the gallows in a wedding dress. And she told them that she would see them all in hell. Since then, they have, for a while, you could take ghost tours. And when I went through it, I mean, I know there are a million reasons why you get orbs on pictures, but I got so many orbs on pictures around the old jail that it looked like it was snowing on a clear night. So make of that what you will. Lots of people had uncanny encounters in the jail. There were many, many tour guides who would not do a night tour of the jail. Then they decided to turn it into classrooms for SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design. And the last thing I heard was that SCAD left, and now they were going to repurpose it into condos. And directly across the street from the old jail was the paupers' burying ground for all those poor people that got hanged. And they had to put them somewhere, so they put them in the pauper cemetery. Well, then they went and built low-income housing on top of that cemetery. Of course, it's all unmarked. I'm sure they didn't move anything. They just built the units. What could possibly go wrong? I mean, really, it's like nobody's watched Poltergeist.
That's what I was thinking. Don't do that.
They didn't even have markers to move.
I know.
But if they, you know,
Nobody
now,
ever learns, do they?
No.
they never do. Lola, back to you.
Well, you sparked an idea in my mind. Portland, the tunnels underground, they have this whole host of tunnels that were supposedly for moving, illegal goods, and some people say people. They called them the Shanghai tunnels because the route was to Shanghai, China. And unfortunately, the term, if you hear someone got shanghaied, that's the term that, you were out drinking, you were drunk and you had some money, and there were trap doors, and they would, do the trap door, and you go, then you'd wake up and you'd be on a ship to Shanghai. So, watch yourself, don't let yourself get roofied. And if you're in Portland, so, there's got to be some ghosts there from all the people who unfortunately maybe died during that process. So yeah, that would be a crazy place for them to go.
Okay. Anne?
Well, I'm piggybacking on the idea of the deserted and haunted theme parks, because there's a theme park in the mountains of North Carolina called the Land of Oz.
Oh,
And it opened in 1970 and closed in 1980. And it was, they had some of the original costumes from the movie.
Ooh.
And it was popular, but it just couldn't hang on. And part of the park burned. There was a big fire in 1975, and a lot of the buildings burned, but they rebuilt. And the original 3 people who actually, I know at least one of them lived in Charlotte, and I know one who was a friend of ours who did some of the music that was used in the park, Lunas McGlowan. But anyway, somebody else took it over after it was rebuilt, but then it closed in 1980. And it was, people used to go up there, and it was just the pictures that people would bring back or whatever were just really eerie, because they had the yellow brick road, they had some of the houses, like the witches, where they did the where she throws the ball of fire and the Tin Man puts it out in the movie. But a lot of it was based on the movie. And they had to tear down the Emerald City stage area and another building, a couple of other buildings, smaller buildings, because of vandalism. But now they have every fall, some of the people that work there, they have a fall festival. And you can go up there and it's really popular. You have to jump on tickets when they go on sale to get in. And it's very popular. So it does open up, but it's really kind of, it's still pretty deserted and pretty eerie. And they had a big problem with people taking the yellow bricks off of the yellow brick road. But I would think that, you know, if there were ghosts there, that Dorothy and Charlie could have come and, you know, helped them fix that one up. So
in a portal to the real Oz or something.
right, yeah, a portal. Yeah, a portal. That's a good idea.
Maybe maybe Oz leaked out somehow there, and they need to push it back into the other world.
Yeah, no flying monkeys, but you know.
Okay,
Anyway.
Elektra.
That's a really great story. I will introduce you now to the ghost town of Spunky Puddle, Ohio, which is a real and actual ghost town. And just why didn't they find this? It's just such a great name, and it's an actual ghost town. I mean, you can go there, but you know, it's just yet another one of those little towns lost to antiquity.
So another place that I don't know whether or not it's haunted, but it should be given the name, is Grimgall Castle, which is around University of North Carolina. It was built by some rich alumni, and it is supposedly home to a secret society, kind of like Skull and Bones is at Yale. Grimgall is for is for Chapel Hill. So nobody can actually validate whether or not it's true. But for, just with a name like that, my headcanon says that they're the evil men of letters. And that they, so not that the British men of letters needed any help being evil, but maybe they're the anti-men of letters. But apparently there is a secret society called the Grimgalls up there, and they have their own castle. And then there is also, going back to ways to annoy Sam in the car, there is Big Bottom, Washington, Satan's Kingdom, Massachusetts, and Moosup, Connecticut.
Wait, you forgot Satan's Kingdom, Vermont, and Satan's Kingdom, Connecticut.
I want to meet these people. I mean, like,
wow, I did not realize that there were.
It's a very popular town name for unknown reasons. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I do interrupt you, but that's kind of important that you don't miss those.
That's true. I do think Dean would have made a detour for the Bat Cave, North Carolina.
Oh yeah.
Now it is named for a cave that had real bats in it, not Bruce Wayne. But and I think he might. It's kind of a sleepy little town, so I think they wouldn't find a whole lot to do there. But I can just see Dean having, nah, Sam, we got to stop. It's the Bat Cave.
Absolutely.
Lola.
all right, so hear me out. I envision this for, they said they would do other episodes, like if they ever come back and fill in those 5 years before Dean died. This is going to be an episode. It's going to be called Hello, Dolly. And they're going to get a missive that they have to go to the head of the most prominent hunting family in the United States. And they always thought they were the most prominent, but they're not. There's one that's even more prominent and secretive. So they have to go get something. And it turns out the family is the Pardon family. And they have to go to Dollyland, because Dolly Pardon is the head of the most famous and most storied hunting family in the United States, and she's got something for them. And I just want it.
But Dean would go absolutely nuts. Pigeons Forge is in a dry county.
So you think Dolly's got to have something up there in her house? She's got to have something. And I mean, you can bring in alcohol to a dry county. Just you can't. There's no bar. So I think they would have to stop before they got there and just have it in the trunk along with all their accoutrements. They're going to have some, beer and stuff.
I could see Dolly fitting that in between
The gun and everything.
works
Yeah.
Yeah, ridding the world of evil. I can see Dolly doing
And
that.
if anyone touches her wig, that's automatic death. I'm sorry. Doesn't matter who you are. Do not touch her hair.
Touring, singing, reading to children, and blowing away monsters. I mean, it all fits.
She travels all over the United States,
Shady right there, yeah. Mhm. I'm with you. And
Well, following right along with Lola, I was always surprised they never went to Graceland.
I was thinking that too.
And, because
The ghost of Elvis.
the ghost of Elvis, although, Elvis really, really wanted to be a law enforcement guy, and he loved guns. And, there's that great, really odd picture of he and Nixon gave him an honorary badge to be a DEA agent. And
The drugs enforcement.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
the irony.
yeah,
He
exactly.
enforced drugs. He definitely enforced drugs.
But Graceland, it could very well be haunted. I mean,
well, see, we know what happened to Elvis from reading Charlene Harris's Sookie Stack,
exactly.
because there was an
Oh.
overzealous fan who was a coroner who brought him over as a vampire, didn't quite do it right, and Bubba ended up being in the books, although not in the TV show for obvious reasons. But yes,
Yeah.
we
Oh yeah, yeah.
no,
So,
Grace, great one. Over to you, Elektra.
Well, I'm thinking along with Gail about Dean annoying Sam in the car, and as they drive through the remote edges of Oregon, insisting they stop in Idiotville, which must be where Sam is from.
Yeah. Well,
They
I
should
can
say
see,
Idgetville, huh?
I can see Dean wanting to stop at Bacon Level, Alabama, and teasing Sam about Big Bottom, Washington, and PP, Ohio, and making way too much over French Lick, Indiana. I can just that kind of thing that started when they were kids, and right up there with he's touching me. Dean would just do it instead of poking Sam. He'd go, "Hey, maybe we can get Dad to stop at PP, Ohio."
PPOH.
PPOH. Yeah. Lola, one more round here before we got to wrap it up.
All right, so I went to college in Birmingham, Alabama, and there's a very creepy place there called Sloss Furnaces. And I used to go there. They would have music shows there, so I'll go there for that. But it's an old like iron mill or whatever, and it's got like the huge metal thing that says Sloss, and it's just all very industrial looking, and it's supposed to be very haunted. The story is that there is a man who worked there he was just a real like driver. He was just awful. He would work people until they died. So at least like 40 people died during his shifts alone. And then he somehow mysteriously ended up falling in a vat of molten iron. How'd that happen? Who knows? So he apparently haunts it. People have said that they're confronted by this angry man who says, "Get to work." So I would think that it would be good to get rid of him. Hopefully Sam and Dean will show up and get rid of that taskmaster because he's annoying everybody.
Okay. And
Well, I was thinking about, large, mostly private homes, or large, formerly private homes built by the lumber barons, all in the north, all in the Midwest mostly. And of course, we have Biltmore House here in North Carolina. But any of those houses that are either still, inhabited by a single family or whatever, or that have been made into hotels or luxury resorts or whatever, they're old, and these lumber barons fought with each other, and they were high livers, and we figured that some of them must have died or killed some of their servants or something, in one of those many houses. And then I have to say that I haven't been to Biltmore in years, but the one time I went and we did the tour, I got so creeped out in the underground swimming pool that I had to leave. I mean, I was just totally creeped out by that place. And I don't know. I got such a weird vibe from it. And so I'm sure that there's got to be a lot more. I mean, maybe not as big as Biltmore, but on that sort of scale, houses in the Midwest and the Northeast that were built back in the day and are most likely haunted.
Okay. Yeah, and if you ask at Biltmore, nobody will tell you about their ghosts, but there are ghosts.
Oh yeah.
Elektra?
There are always ghosts. I'm thinking about a couple of wild goose chases they might have gotten sent on in Bigfoot, Texas, or Frankenstein, Missouri. Even if we know where the Stein family is, you never know if somebody might have gotten inspired by where they live.
True.
People are crazy.
I could see Dean joking around about Possum Neck, Alabama, just because, or Slaughterville, Oklahoma, or Half Hell, North Carolina, when you go halfway to hell and then come back.
In a handbasket.
In a
Yeah.
yeah. And in terms of, well, you could also go to Cut and Shoot, Texas, but then follow it up with Hurt, Virginia, in case you got the cutting and the shooting. But from a real place, Ghost in the, what's it called? It's up in Maggie Valley. It is another defunct ghost town in the sky.
Oh yeah.
An amusement park in Maggie Valley, which is further out from Boone.
Mhm.
And it's gone. It was there for a long time. It closed, reopened, just couldn't kind of make a go of it. And now it's up for sale, probably for the last time. But with a name like that, there's got to be something there. And so I never got to it when it was open, but I've got to say, I find that really interesting. And then speaking of old abandoned sanitariums like Waverly, there is one in Staunton, Virginia. You can see it from the parking lot of the Wawa.
That's pretty funny.
It was a huge facility. It was that Kirkbride design that is kind of ingrained in our minds of what a Victorian sanitarium or asylum looks like, with the very elaborate, it looks like a big mansion, but it's really awful on the inside. And it's a gigantic building, but it has been left to rot. And nobody's, at this point, I don't think you could redevelop it, but nobody's torn it down either. And there are things that go on there at Halloween where they do allow a small degree of tours, but you can't go in anymore. But it's probably like 6 stories tall in the tower, and then has these big wings that are at least 4 stories. I mean, it's a massive building. And you just look at that and go, wow, okay, that's got to be haunted. Just the whole history there, it's got to be haunted. Well, folks, there's a whole lot more weird stuff in the world that we won't get to today, but we sure put a dent in it. So thank you all for that. And before we wrap up, let's go around and let everybody know where we can find you online, starting with Lola.
I'm Lola Lariscy, Larscy. You can Google me. I've got a website. I'm on Facebook. The only place I'm not is Twitter. I quit after Uber Jerk took over, and I miss it. Whatever.
Okay, Anne.
I'm on Facebook as Ann Wicker. You can find me pretty easily there. Mostly, I'm very seldom on Twitter, but I am on there still. And I'm also on Instagram, which I enjoy a lot with the photos. And you can always find me at Team Free Will NC and on Continual.
Okay, Elektra.
You can find me at untilmidnight.com, and I'm on Mastodon at Elektra at Wandering Shop.
I'm pretty easy to find at gailcmartin.com, morganbryce.com. I'm on all the social media under one or the other or both of those names. So if you spell them right, you'll find me. I do run the Supernatural TFWNC group on Facebook. I'm a columnist for the Winchester Family Business Blog, but most of the time you can find me here on Continual. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more Supernatural coming up soon. So we'll see you online.